usage here, I want to talk about one of the big issues that we read about with AI and essay-based legal subjects. Because there's been a lot of talk about this being obviously the first way that students may sort of just put in the essay question and come out with an answer, submit this. And I'm fairly sure that we will all have seen these over the past couple of years being submitted. Normally, I found personally not particularly great papers, but sometimes possibly enough to get a pass. So it's got me thinking. I want to, first of all, before I get started, obviously acknowledge the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups, the Eastern Kulin Nations, which is where RMIT business is conducted and where I am today in Melbourne. So I'm going to give you a quick overview. I incorporated AI into the assessment task for my jurisprudence course at RMIT, and I sort of want to talk this and use it as an example. I think it's definitely able to be extrapolated out of this course. It's not just for jurists, but I'm going to talk about why I put it in and the success I've had and the way students have been working, I'd say with AI, but maybe slightly in opposition to AI, so slightly different to Cornelia's approach. So just so everyone's aware, Juris is a non-pre 11 compulsory course for our JD students here. It can be enrolled in by any JD student at any year level. So it's pitched as quite a general introduction to legal theory and jurisprudence. So students don't need a background in philosophy or legal theory to understand it. This becomes more relevant when we look at the way the assessment is sort of set up. Now, the course has 3 pieces of assessment, all are essay-based. The first is a reflective understanding of the Hart-Fuller debate, which is, if anyone's had to teach that before, will know how much students love reading H.L.A. Hart in their first week. But this is really based on their personal reflections, how they, arguments about rhetoric. So it becomes quite hard for them to sort of chat GPT their way through that because it's more of a personal reflection. This is all a bit different, this course, to the rest of RMIT. We're very much on authentic assessment processes, so memos of advice, letters to clients, file notes, and then final exams. So my jurisprudence course is quite different in the way in which it's assessed. So I've had this bit of leeway in being able to introduce AI. So course runs over a 12-week seminar. Each week we have a new jurisprudential or legal theory lens, 1 to 3 positive naturals, 4 to 6 critical approaches to law, and then law and or in society to finish off the course. And I've bolded weeks 4 to 6 because this is where the AI assessment comes in. So over these weeks, now this is in case anyone's not looked at jurisprudence for many years or is wondering what on earth these are the critical weeks that we teach. So realism, critical legal studies, feminism and critical race theory, and then law and economics. So students are given these over the 3-week period, these different topics, and they're always given primary sources. So there's no textbook for this. They're just reading original papers from the theorists, from the big thinkers in this field, and they're discussing those each week, as well as some hypotheticals in our classes. The primary nature, I'll come to this a bit later, I found really matters. So when students are reading these original materials, they take a bit of ownership over it. They seem to have that conversation, that reading conversation that we might have as academics with a theory or theorist. And when we come to the assessment, they seem to sort of be on the side of the theorist that they've read. So what's the question? How do I set it up? Basically, I ask the students to develop an essay question based on these 3 weeks. Now, this may be about the reading, the theorist, comparative law. I'll give some examples shortly. They then enter this into a generative AI. We're mostly using ChatGPT because it's Juris Doctors. We've got sort of a range of student ages, from sort of those in their early 20s to some of those in their sort of 40s. And so ChatGPT is what we're going to. Some are using Google, some are using other generative programs. Any really is fine. The main thing is we get them to generate an essay based on the question that they've workshopped, and then they spend 2,500 words analyzing the AI-generated essay. So the rationale for this I'm going to come to shortly, but it's in 2 parts. One, we know that for essay-based subjects, students are turning to generative AI, and there's been a lot of research on this, to write the essays for them. But if we sort of take that and say, well, yeah, do that, but now you've got to critique what the essay has either done well or done badly. So just a bit of notes here that I send out to students saying that, look, questions can be on anything that we're looking at. An example I say is, a legal realism analysis of the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act. So it will draw these aspects in. They then have to critique the response. So what does it do well? Because often when we do these sort of critiques, we might say, oh, AI is no good. I don't think that's useful. So what's it done well? But we need to look at the perspectives it's privileged as well. So which author is it presenting? Which approach is it arguing is stronger or better if you're doing a comparative analysis? Are the citations real or make-believe? And if they are real, are they the most appropriate citations for this? Or is this just a skim of understanding? So if we said critical legal studies and it chucks in a bit of Duncan Kennedy, great, but it may have missed another 50 authors, which would have bulked the essay, something we actually want to read about. So we're looking at biases, and then we ask, what's it done badly? Are certain authors or theorists privileged over others? And does the essay represent the authors or theorists appropriately? So I'm hoping everyone's sort of on the same page. We've now got students that have created their essay, seen it. They have to go much deeper into their analysis and understanding of the topics and materials to critique and analyze what they've got before them. So it's a bit of a sneaky way for me to make sure they're doing a lot more reading and research through this assessment. Now, part of the rationale and the way I've built it into my course is that in those weeks, the 4 to 6, each of those challenges or critiques an aspect of dominant law. So realism, critical legal studies, feminist legal theory, critical race theory, law and economics all offer different perspectives and rationales against sort of hegemonic law. There's an example. So we'll critique, say, the reasonable person through a feminist lens when we're looking at feminist legal theory. We might also talk about some contract law cases, Luther and Diprose, Balfour, and thinking about how feminist perspectives have been sort of ignored by the courts historically. Students are asked to adopt the theory we address each week in class to answer the problem, so they have this sort of ownership of it. So each week, so if we're doing law and economics, they're all economics scholars. If we're doing realism, they're all realists that week. Now, because of this, students are already in a critical mindset. They can use the tools in these critical weeks to think about how these theories are generated by AI, because a lot of the issues that we see in the biases in generated AI are ones that we find in other facets as well, such as law and critical race, feminist legal theory, even law and economics will challenge some of those. So AI is everywhere, but we have this big issue between its prevalence and its ability. And I think a lot of the time, especially students think that they're going to be able to submit an essay that's good, having it written by generated AI. And I'm assuming you've all seen it. I've never seen a student write with perfect American grammar, and yet every generated essay I receive does that. So the inherited biases are huge. And so I've primarily been using resources from the DARE Institute. That link goes there. I'm not sure if Liam wants to put that in the chat maybe for other people. If you haven't seen this, it's a great resource. They're collating all of the data on issues in AI. And it really combats, or what I'm trying to combat, is this issue around essays being the easiest way. You can write a memorandum of advice based on this, but I say an essay is often easier. So what's the process and results? Well, we workshop the questions. So myself and my tutors will workshop the questions with students so they can come to us and ask these questions. We'll also ask them to put in a couple of different ones each, what answer works. This is worth 40% of their grade. They're given a 4-week window to complete the analysis. And so the level of analysis reflects this weighting. So this is different to a take-home exam where they've only got, say, 3 days to write several papers. This is graded quite, not harsh, I'd say fairly, based on what we expect. The assessment was introduced in 2023, and now, anecdotally, I took over the course before that, but given lockdowns, it's been a bit hard to, judge how it's gone. But as I say, anecdotally, on my grading, these assessments receive higher overall grades. Students are more engaged with the materials. As I say, the caliber of analysis that happens within the essays is tremendously improved. And it's partially because they've got the existing document to critique. So they've got a point of reference to say, okay, is this good or bad, rather than giving them an academic paper written by an academic, which is going to be sort of better reference, more nuanced, that they may spend a lot longer on. So reiterating here that we give them primary sources as class materials. It embeds them within a certain theory each week. And I found they actually become a bit defensive of it. So if I give them an original Ronald Coase paper to read, they'll take that on board and sort of argue against it when AI doesn't give it the credence it deserves, similarly with any of the other theories. So that's the way I'm doing now. I'm assuming I'm hopefully, Paul, under time, but I did want to make sure there's time for questions, because I can't imagine I'm the only person doing the critique approach, but I'm more than happy to answer questions afterwards on anything that people may have. Thank you.